Hello everyone, welcome back to Jeu Magique. Today we're going to take a look at the furlough scheme in Denmark. The reason why I chose this article is twofold. First, I was in Denmark about this time last year and I quite like Copenhagen. Second reason being, this article would be a writing sample for you if you want to learn to write clearly and in a structural way in English. Quickly before we start, I highly recommend you to take a look at this slide and the next one, just in case you have any questions about this challenge and my channel. Okay, let's crack on with the lesson. The title today is Waging War on Recessions. By the way, this article is quite easy, so there wouldn't be a lot of new words, but pay attention to its structures and the grey parts. To fight a war or organize a series of activities in order to achieve something. You could also say the government is waging war on drug dealers. They're trying to just clamp down on drug dealing. Next one, since the emergence of the welfare state. The famous welfare states are Nordic countries, which includes Denmark for sure, because welfare states basically is a system whereby the government undertakes to protect the health and well-being of its citizens. Next one, the pandemic has led many people to find themselves in a halfway stage. Furlough. This often involves the state paying a large slice of employees' wages so that firms can keep them on the payroll during the lockdown. Keep someone on the payroll means this person is still hired by your company. Also, pay attention to this one, a large slice of employees' wages. Usually we say a slice of cake, but here you could use the phrase to replace a huge proportion or a huge percentage of. Next one, the grey part. How effective is this approach? This is a question which leads the whole paragraph. So this paragraph starts from the perspective of firms, because this INSEAD business school has surveyed 8,781 Danish firms, and they have come to the conclusion that the median decline caused by the COVID-19 was 35%. And then against this backdrop, the Danish government offered a variety of financial aid programs to firms, including a furlough scheme, which paid 75% of salary costs, subject to a cap to eligible companies. Here, subject to is synonymous with depending on, controlled by, hinging on, or conditional on. Basically, it means it is affected by this cap or controlled by this cap. And cap, we've seen this phrase, we've seen this word a few times. You could say a daily cap for London Tube. Next one, the aid seemed to work, which seems like an answer for the question, how effective is this approach? And then the aid seemed to work. Firms that received it laid off fewer workers and furloughed more people than firms which received no aid at all. So here we could see a difference between layoff and furlough. The difference basically lies in here. A furlough is a temporary layoff from work, even if they're not paid during furloughs, but they do keep employment benefits such as health insurance. So you could see that being fired or being furloughed could be totally two different kinds of concepts. When the revenue of the company comes back, the furloughed workers would be able to come back, but the laid off ones would be considered as separated parts of a company. They're not even part of the company. Next one, but this definition of success might be subject to a selection bias. Selection bias is a statistic concept, which means the bias introduced by the selection of individuals, groups, or data for an analysis in such a way that proper randomization is not achieved. To solve or to make up for this bias, the researchers also asked firms a counterfactual question. Counterfactual questions could be replaced by it wouldn't be replaced, but it means a false if clause, which you could tell from the tense of this question. What decisions would they have taken had they been unable to get aid? So it's quite obvious. Next great part, if these findings are replicated elsewhere, furlough schemes may be adopted in future recessions. This great sentence is like a natural assumption by asking the effectiveness and then answering the question. If the aid seems to work, of course the governments around the world would consider adopting the same approach. So it's quite natural. Next one, in Germany, the government has adopted a scheme that subsidized short-term working. I like the word subsidize because it literally saves a lot of word count when it comes to give someone the money or capitalize or give funds to, just give financial aid to, and you could always sum up the meaning in subsidize, this simple one word. There are two obvious concerns about such support schemes. The first is the cost. The second problem is that such schemes may prevent the necessary role that recessions play in creative destruction. You could see again it's pretty much clear. The first, the second. So when you are writing your articles, pay attention to the keywords such as two obvious concerns, the first, the second. And quite interestingly, the author mentioned creative destruction, whereby resources are reallocated from failing businesses to successful ones. Basically means they are sifting out the zombie companies, which we mentioned before. On cost, the counter-arguments, so we see the word counter again as a prefix. Counterfactual and counter-arguments is that widespread job losses lead to deep recessions and thus sharp decline in government revenues. This is one of the counter-arguments. And the second one being, it would be great if governments could save only companies that have a viable long-term future. Viable means feasible, have a possibility to succeed. Next one, long-term future. Well, it's like a prospect. The analogy might be an old rule of thumb among central banks. Rule of thumb, so if you see the word thumb, if you measure things by your thumb, it can't be that accurate, but it could be a principle guidance, as you could see right here, a broadly accurate guide or principle based on practice rather than theory. Next one, in financial crises, to banks that have a liquidity problem, which means you're having trouble making your money move in a proper way, not a solvency. Solvency means your ability to pay back your debts. In practice, however, financial crises in recent decades have been so acute. Well, acute here, literally, if you're looking for a simple replacement, then severe is the one you're looking for. But also you could have an all-important or crucial. Maybe it's not that appropriate, but this one would work. Why isn't my microphone working? Okay, it's working now. This one is quite rare. Egregious is quite rare. It's like shockingly severe, but is usually in formal context rather than just like colloquial speaking daily day-to-day context. Next one, their main priority has been to dole out aid as quickly as possible in order to save jobs. Dole out means to mete out, to divvy up, to distribute the shares. Also you could say someone is on the dole, which means this person is receiving government and employment benefits. Next bit, the longer the schemes are in place, the more likely it is that market distortions will occur. Market distortions right here, I think it refers to this bit, because such schemes may prevent the necessary role that recessions play in creative destruction, which means the role of the market. It's conceivable to think that furlough schemes might eventually be viewed in the same light. Conceivable means it's imaginable, it's possible, it's practical to do something. In the same light, you could understand it as in the same context. So basically, let's do a quick summary. The pandemic has led many people to find themselves in furlough. In Denmark, a welfare state, the government offered a variety of financial aid programs to firms, including a furlough scheme which paid 75% of salary costs, which is, well, unimaginable in other countries. This seemed to successfully reduce the severity of unemployment. Some say that such support schemes may trigger huge costs, as we saw in the first concern in the article, and prevent resource reallocation. Others believe this would effectively decrease the acuteness of crises. The Economist suggests that the government should only save enterprises with a viable long-term future, while doling out aid as quickly as possible to save jobs. So that's the summary for today, and it's a quite short article. Also, because it's the last episode of our June challenge, I would appreciate if you could leave some comments in the comment section below, telling me how you feel about this challenge and what you expect to see in the next month. And I'll see you guys in the next video, and bye!